Poundcakes is it's a questionable name for a supervillainess that was featured in the first half of the Captain Marvel DLC level. Poundcakes had all but one interaction with Captain Marvel in the comics, in one issue back in 2013. I guess that was all the developers needed to warrant making Poundcakes look like a longtime nemesis of Captain Marvel. But Poundcakes is a bit of a quality of life upgrade from another type of character we've encountered in the past. Remember a while ago when we went over a bunch of big boys with all the same abilities like Hulk Killer, Ravage, Curse, and all that? Well, Poundcakes here has pretty much all of the abilities they have, but is a regular sized minifigure. Being a big boy may be cool at first, but you come to learn that they can be clunky in both movement and combat. Poundcakes, being regularly sized, rectifies these issues. So, to review, Poundcakes has 6 abilities, which are Toxin Immunity, Super Jump, Cracked Wall, Wall Climbing, Strength, and Regenerative Health. A solid lineup. This might seem like an obscure Marvel character that's just another spin on Black Panther, but White Tiger here was actually originally a Daredevil character. In fact, White Tiger's secret identity, Angela Del Toro, was briefly mentioned in Jessica Jones in a throwaway line, but of course that's not enough to put on the MCU edition list. Well, Angela Del Toro was the original White Tiger, but her niece, Ava Ayala, took the mantle and is probably the one you know, if you know her at all. She was one of the characters on Spider-Man's team in the Ultimate Spider-Man show, alongside Iron Fist, Power Man, and Nova. White Tiger, with tiger in her name, has a bunch of those animal-related abilities. As I've said, it doesn't matter if a character isn't superpowered, they'll get the abilities whether it makes sense or not. Remember Bengal? The 6 abilities of White Tiger are Dig, Cracked Wall, Agility, and Wall Climbing. White Tiger also has Scan and Technology. I'm not sure if it can be justified based on my limited knowledge on the character, but I hope she's smart, just so it makes sense. Here we are at a very important character in Marvel as a whole. What's infuriating is that both variants of Black Panther are available only in DLC. That's so slimy on TT Games' part, but they knew shills like me would buy anything that they threw at us. And they were right. Something I should mention is that Black Panther is not going on the MCU edition list, since Captain America Civil War serves as the barrier, since Civil War was the last movie to be represented in this game with the character pack DLC. If a character in this game showed up in the MCU after Civil War, they would make the MCU edition list. The Netflix shows are somewhat an exception to this rule, since none of the Defenders characters in this game are based on the Netflix versions. I know I make it way too complicated for myself, but it's not fun if it's easy to understand, you know? Both Black Panthers in this game are the same, and I've already said a lot in this segment, so I'll save Black Panther's abilities for the next variant. This is the variant based off his first appearance in the MCU, Civil War. If I'm being honest, I'm not really a fan of Black Panther's suit in the MCU. I just think the comic suit with the cape and whatnot is just so much cooler. So that's why I ranked the other variant over this one. The MCU's skin-tight design here really doesn't hit the mark for me, but the more Black Panther showed up in the MCU, the more I've come to accept it. This is the variant of Black Panther that comes with the Black Panther DLC, and this variant is more similar to his outfit from the comics. See what I mean? The suit here makes Black Panther look more like the king he is. It exudes confidence, boldness, and other positive traits that I can't think of the words for right now. I also love his cowl piece on top of all that, but in terms of abilities, Black Panther has a solid set of abilities that make total sense for him. Now, as an animal-themed hero, he has the same set of abilities that most animal-themed characters have in this game. So he has Agility, Dig, Wall Climbing, and Cracked Wall for some reason. Speaking of Dig, there's a sort of extra ability I haven't talked about that most Dig characters also have. There are a ton of these dirt holes that function the exact same as grates do, but those with Dig can also interact with them. It's pretty rare in the game. I've only seen it a few times in the open world, and I don't really consider it as an ability on its own. So I lump it in with Dig, but most Dig characters, including Black Panther here, can interact with them. In addition to the abilities I've already mentioned, Black Panther has both technology and scan, probably due to the advanced nature of the country who rules Wakanda. Now here we are to the bane of my existence for the latter half of February 2022. Now, when I started this series, I was midway through watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Netflix, but when I learned that Netflix was removing all of its Marvel content at the end of the month, I was just starting season 5, so I created a schedule that would help me finish Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by the time it left Netflix. It would also do me good to finish the show since I'm doing the series, and I can say, man, did they jump the shark. They intended to end the show at season 5, but got renewed for 2 more seasons for some reason, and man, no one could stay dead. It started to piss me off. But Daisy Johnson, the subject of this segment, was my biggest problem with the show overall. After season 2, they tried so hard to make her relevant, to the point where they were just like, let's just have her be the reason why the Earth would destroy it in the future. Trust me, I know this is a hot take, but this is how I feel. However, in this game, she's not bad of a character at all. The obvious abilities that she'd have are S.H.I.E.L.D., because the name of the show she's from, agility, because every female character has to have it apparently, scan and technology, because she started the show as a hacker, so okay, I'll give her that one. That one makes sense. And glass, because of the fact that she's an inhuman, and that's like her power. Her 6th and last ability, though, is quite a surprise, and I wouldn't even know that she had it had I not discovered it accidentally. Daisy has the dig ability. Yeah, you heard that right. She uses her quake ability to uproot things from under the ground. We could spend all day deliberating the logistics of how that can even happen, but let's just move on. In the base game, there are no Spider-Man related characters, and obviously that has to do with the mess of Sony owning the rights to Spider-Man. But after Sony and Marvel made a deal to allow Spider-Man into the MCU, it also allowed for a Spider-Man character pack DLC. You know, an ideal DLC character pack for Spider-Man would include maybe a few Spider-Man and a plethora of Spidey villains, because, you know, he has probably the best villains arsenal in all comics period, rivaled by only maybe Batman. But unfortunately, what we got was a plethora of Spider-Men that are all pretty much the same. A disappointment, to say the least. However, Spider-Man being in a game centered around the MCU is kind of novel anyway. This is the first character we're seeing from that character pack, which is surprising since it's pretty late into the series. The next 2 segments after this are Spider People that have the same abilities as Spider-Girl here. The reason why I ranked her as the least is because her design is kind of lazy. This is the ultimate costume of Jessica Drew, and while it is accurate, it's just a red suit with a white spider on it. The designs of the other Spider People are either more intricate or just have more going on. Since Spider-Girl and the next 2 characters all have the same abilities, I'll cover them little by little. They have 6 abilities, and the first 2 I'm covering will have to do with how they transport themselves. The first 2 abilities of Spider-Girl, and the subsequent Spider People I will cover, are wall climbing and web swinging. This comes as no surprise since web swinging and sticking to walls is kind of a staple of Spider People. Next up, also from the Spider-Man character pack, is the Scarlet Spider. What separates the Scarlet Spider, or Ben Reilly as he's also known as, is the fact that he's a genetic clone of Peter Parker. So since he's a Peter Parker clone, it makes sense that he'd have the same exact abilities as the regular Peter Parker. But as I said, he has the same exact abilities as Spider-Girl too. In the last segment, I covered web swinging and wall climbing. Scarlet Spider has those, along with the next 2 abilities I'm about to reveal right now, and 2 more I'll reveal in the next segment. So the next 2 abilities of Scarlet Spider are grapple and agility. Agility should be obvious for Spider-Man, but grapple is a weird situation. I feel as though the grapple ability in LEGO Marvel Superheroes was made a thing specifically with Spider-Man in mind. He whips out the webs and, pulls the grapple tabs or whatever they are. In this game, however, grapple, along with most of the abilities in LEGO Avengers, were originally LEGO Marvel abilities that were carried over. So even though grapple is more a Spider-Man ability than anything, it's not really the case for this game. I'd say that grapple is more of a Hawkeye thing in this game than it is a Spider-Man thing. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's strange. The last Spider-Man we'll see for a while, As you can tell from the name of this variant, this Spider-Man is the variant of Tom Holland's first appearance. There's a part of me that makes me feel off about this variant. I think it's the eyes, maybe too small. I don't know, it's a nitpick. But like Spider-Girl and Scarlet Spider, this Spider-Man has the same ability set. So far, I've covered web swinging, wall climbing, agility, and grapple, all of which make sense. The final two abilities these three characters have are technology and scan. Also not surprising given Peter Parker's intelligence. I placed the Civil War Spider-Man over Spider-Girl and Scarlet Spider, mainly because it makes the most sense for Peter Parker to have technology and scan. Now, Scarlet Spider being a genetic clone of Peter Parker probably also grants him the same intelligence, and I honestly don't know Jessica Drew's intelligence. But the OG Peter being smart is something I know for a fact. Also, Spider-Man entering the MCU was almost monumental, so that almost gave Civil War Spider-Man an edge. This may come as a surprise to some, but White Wolf is actually applicable to the MCU edition list. White Wolf is the alias Bucky went by while he was being dehydrated in Wakanda. See what I did there? Bucky had one line about it in Falcon and Winter Soldier where he corrected Sam when Sam called him White Panther.
Little time in Wakanda and you come out White Panther. It's actually White Wolf.
White Wolf was also the name of a Black Panther villain, though this guy wasn't Bucky. However, since I allowed Sam Wilson Captain America and Jane Foster Thor onto the MCU edition list, it's only fair that White Wolf is allowed onto the list as well. As for this game, White Wolf is kind of a Black Panther and Winter Soldier hybrid, which makes sense. White Wolf wields a rifle, just like Winter Soldier, and that's actually the extent of the similarities with Winter Soldier. White Wolf doesn't have S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra, so I guess this game unintentionally was accurate to the MCU since Bucky wasn't brainwashed at this point of being White Wolf, at least not entirely. As for White Wolf's 6 abilities, they mostly derive from Black Panther, which makes sense since this White Wolf was a part of the Black Panther DLC. White Wolf has Dig, Cracked Wall, Technology, Scan, and Agility, but instead of Black Panther's wall climbing, White Wolf has Stealth. Speaking of which, Winter Soldier honestly should have had Stealth. Maybe White Wolf here is kind of making up for it. But yeah, Stealth is a way better ability than wall climbing. DEATHLOK was a character that came in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. DLC, as he was a recurring character for the earlier seasons. You might remember that in the DEATHLOK segment, however long ago in the series, I said that her name is a derivation of another character. Well, DEATHLOK is that character. Unless I'm wrong, and it just happens to be a huge coincidence, which has happened before, but I feel like this can't be a coincidence. But it's weird that DEATHLOK was in the base game and DEATHLOK was a DLC character. And the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. DLC too, which makes it a little weirder. In any case, DEATHLOK is a cyborg-looking guy. It's like Marvel looked at DC's Cyborg and Deadshot and combined the two to make this guy. But as a cyborg, he has a lot of those abilities associated with being a robot, mainly scan and technology. The other abilities he has are regenerative health, explosive, agility, and even super jump.